Thank you, everybody. Yeah, so today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some thinking for creators of NFTs and how to get to the next interesting things that we can be building. So let's go back a few years to 2018 when, if you were in this space, you might be familiar with a lot of talk about dApps. And at the time, there was sort of this, the most creative idea was that applications as we knew them in Web 2 would essentially be added to peer-to-peer systems and blockchains and become dApps that would become more popular than the centralized alternative. There was a lot of money that went into projects like this. You probably, if you were around, signed up for a few of them. A really popular one, or a fairly popular one, was like Peep.eth. It was the Twitter alternative for crypto people. But this idea isn't very creative, and it doesn't lead to new novel use cases. It doesn't really lead to new user groups. It doesn't lead to that sort of exciting inspiration that you need to really drive the masses to adopt what you were building. But if you're here, you're probably aware that there was a swerve to the right when NFTs started picking up. And we sort of abandoned the Peep.eth dApp sort of straight line that everybody thought was coming, and instead NFTs gave us something totally new. And that flourishing has been amazing. It's inspired a lot of people, and a lot of really cool things have been built. And this has led to a brand new user experience. And when I say user experience, I think it's really handy to actually think of something like Instagram. And you can bucket the user experience of Instagram into sort of two big buckets. There's everything that you do in the application, which drive your clicks and drive the loops of how you're behaving in the application. And then there's everything that the app has you do outside of the application. That sort of bleeding of the experience out into the real world. And it's done a lot of things, like everything from selfie sticks to the poses that you see people doing on the streets. And so that's the real user experience of Instagram, right? Is the things outside. And NFTs are very much the same way. And so if we think of those two big buckets, well, most of you being here at this event have used an NFT this week to enter an event, for example. So that's the experience outside of the NFT. So it's really handy to think about then what is the NFT? What is that inner loop that we're able to build with in order to build new things? And so there's a bunch of great people that basically always come back to the idea that an NFT is purely ownership. It's ownership of a digital thing, but it's purely ownership. But when you say ownership, that's where it gets really interesting, where we as creators can be exploring what we can do next and what is on the sort of forefront of this technology. Because ownership is sort of ambiguous, and I thought it'd be helpful actually to think through these user experiences by breaking down what do we actually mean by ownership. And so you're all familiar with kind of the first experience of ownership, which is the hold or sell. So you own an NFT, and then you get to experience that ownership with a basic own or sell option. And so almost every NFT, except for maybe Soulbound and concepts like that, have this experience baked in. And that's been the boon of PFPs and generative art. But then the other component of ownership, and what's really cool is you can see these components, you can see their analogous components in ownership in the real world. So this doesn't just happen digitally. But what's really interesting with the ownership, these experiences that you're building into NFTs, is it's actually code in your smart contract. So these are building blocks that you can mix and match in order to drive the experience, what you want people to be doing outside of the NFT. And I'll get to some pretty cool basic examples to think through this and think through ownership as a building block. But the second one is association or join, right? So just that simple Discord gating, or being able to put it as your profile picture on Twitter, saying this is me, this is mine, this is what I own. And then the really kind of later, sort of more exciting one is this use, play, attend. So this is a lot of what we've done this week with our NFTs, being able to go and actually join events. But also like the ability to take an NFT and join a world, join a metaverse, and actually play that NFT. That's a really great concept. And I want to extend it in a minute. But because these are building blocks, you see really neat things emerge when the smart contract behind the NFT mixes that ownership, or the creator mixes different rights to that ownership differently. And so like Seth Green's project of building a whole entertainment idea around his Bored Ape, it's actually mixing different experiences of that association, the right to use, the right to hold. And so what I wanted to really share with you all is that none of these are touching on one of the biggest ideas of ownership, and you see, again, in the analogous ownership off-chain, when you own things, the right to modify. And so a lot of us think the immutability on-chain means that we can never modify these things. But just like ownership in the real world, mutability usually comes with rules. So I like to say, like, if you own a piece of property, it doesn't mean that you can dig 40 stories into the ground. There's rules about what it means to actually own that thing. And as creators, you can set up those rules. So you can create your NFT and define the boundaries of how your users are mutating things. And it's how that mutation happens that's getting really exciting. And that's what my company builds, is we're building a decentralized protocol that allows you to create mutable data that's defined by immutable rules in your smart contract. And I'll show you a couple examples where that gets really neat. This is not one built by us, but I just want to give it as a very basic example. In Creature World, if any of you are familiar, they had a really experimental idea where if you owned a creature, they had a 3D world you could go and join and play, and at the end of the journey, you would be presented with a new mouth for your creature. Simple as that. And then you could apply that mouth, and if you went back to OpenSea, you'd see the mouth that was applied and everything like that. So that modification, very simple, and it created this sort of badge of engagement. So if you went and partook in this sort of moment as the community, then your creature actually changed. Very simple idea, but really big things you can start layering on top of that. But I think a really cool thing, and I've mentioned this to a couple projects this week, where a lot of people talk about play to earn with NFTs, but there's actually a more sort of nuanced way we might be thinking about doing it. And that is, instead of owners of NFTs that are in games, instead of them playing to earn a token that's different than their NFT, why not have them actually upgrade their token by playing the game? And in this way, they actually, if that is baked into the NFT itself, that upgrade process, they can then go and sell it for more value than the basic one that other people are getting. And so in that way, they sort of earn more than just some revenue on their playing, but they actually earn more status if they want to keep this thing. You can actually generate more engagement in your game, because I'm sure people will create cottage industries of building these things up to sell to people that want to skip levels, and actually also drive revenue to keep growing deeper and deeper as a community. So that's all baked into this idea of modifying your NFT based on your interactions in the community of the game and the platform. So this is a really cool game, and you can see, like, as the user is playing, their ship gets, boosters and different guns and things like that. And then you can go a step further, and you can say, actually, we can not only make them sort of earn, and by earning, they're modifying and making their NFT better, evolving it, but you can actually embed that into the community itself. And so this is an NFT that we're building for our community. So there's a community of developers that build with our protocol, and with our NFT, as they go and build with our protocol, they can make open source contributions, they can use different adjacent technologies, things like that, and they unlock badges that then they can decide to display on their NFT. And these right now are not soul-bound badges, so they actually go with the NFT if they decide to sell it. And those badges will give them different access to resources in the community. So it's actually creating alignment around building technology together. And so we really believe that this idea of well-crafted NFTs can link technology community art in more interesting ways if you add the fourth block of ownership, which is mutability. And again, it's mutable data with immutable rules. And all sorts of things that you can build with that: reputation tracking, in-game evolution, user creations, advanced interfaces, clubs, rewards, tickets, all sorts of really neat things that you can allow to grow with your users as they use it and build with it. And so if you're interested in what we're doing, we create the metadata backend. So if you're familiar with creating metadata for NFTs, you create a little JSON file. The token URI points to that JSON file. In our system, it's a network of validators that maintain relational data, and so every token of yours can point to a field of metadata, and that metadata, it can only be changed according to the rules in your smart contract. So it's permissionless, but your smart contract can actually change what your users can do to update their NFT. So you could imagine your smart contract may allow them to change the name of their NFT, and a single column here in a single row would get the new name and the NFT from, say, OpenSea. would then just see the latest record. So if you're interested in that, check out tableland.xyz and really help us explore. If you're creators, we'd love your help exploring this idea of the fourth building block of ownership and see what we can do creating together. And you can check that out at tableland.xyz. Thank you.